Good evening, everyone. My name is Paras Fatnani. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer and co-founder at Seed Global Education. And we're excited to have you all here today. We're going to talk a little bit about how it is like to prepare to apply to top business schools. But before we do anything further, for all the folks that are joining us today, I know it's a bit late and we appreciate you joining in. Just in the chat functionality at the bottom of your screen, if you can post which city you're joining in from, just at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat functionality. This will just help us understand a little bit about where everyone is coming in from today. You should now be able to post in the chat just the name of the city that you're coming in from. So we've got some folks from Istanbul. Lovely to have you here. Folks from Cairo. Wonderful. Good mixed people from Jeddah, people from Saudi Arabia as well. We're really excited to host this session. We're going to talk, we're going to hear expert opinions from Amy Duckworth, who's the founder of Empower Admissions. She'll talk a little bit about how do you select and apply to right schools. But also before that, I know all of you have registered for the upcoming Seed Business School festivals in your respective cities. So we're thrilled to see you in less than a week's time. Several of you are posting in that are coming in from Saudi Arabia. We're thrilled to have you here. We will be in Riyadh and in Jeddah in Jeddah on the 5th of November and in Riyadh on the 8th of November. And prior to that, we'll be in Cairo and in Istanbul as well. So we're looking forward to seeing you all. Thank you for joining today. What I'll do, just in terms of the format for today, I'll briefly tell you a little bit about how to prepare for coming for the Seed Business School Festival initially. And then I'll hand over to Amy, who'll present to us a little bit about what it is like when you're choosing the right school. How do you get started with applying to the right business school? And how do you make a strong impression as well? And then we'll have time for Q&A. So you'll have a chance to post and ask questions to both of us as well. For the questions that anyone may have, you will see a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen as well. So as Amy is presenting or as I'm talking about different things, if you have questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A section. And once we come to the Q&A time after Amy's presentation, we'll talk a little bit more about answering those questions as well. So to kick things off for today, I'm going to talk a little bit about how do you prepare as you come for the Business School Festival. Firstly, just as an invitation, if any of your friends or other people that you know that are thinking about business school, be it a specialized master's or an MBA program, please feel free to bring them along. They can register on the day itself as well. We have several top schools joining us across multiple cities. I'll give you some names here as well. So we've got NYU Abu Dhabi, which is the NYU Stern Abu Dhabi campus joining us. We've got London Business School. We've got Imperial College Business School from the UK. We've got Bocconi, another top European school. And we've got several top schools joining us from the US and from Canada as well. So please feel free to look up the event page to know a little bit more about the schools and how you can prepare for having those conversations as well. Now, all of you, when you have registered, you've received an email that is a link to a ticket. The ticket has a QR code. Please make sure when you're coming to the event, you're keeping that QR code handy. That is fundamentally your ticket that you will show at the entrance, and something that the QR code is what you'll scan with every school when you meet them as well. A little bit about some of the benefits. All of you, when you come to the event, will receive a copy of the Seed Study Abroad Guide. That will have information, some bits around how to choose and apply to a school, about cracking the GMAT exam, and also about each school that is attending the event. So you're going to be able to learn a little bit more before even you speak to the schools, and make sure that you're looking at the programs, the eligibility, and the career outcomes through that as well. Talking quickly about the agenda, there's going to be two main stages. Now, some of you are very application ready who will want to attend sessions in the prep stage. For some of you that also want to learn a little bit about what career outcomes you may have, you can also join us at the career stage as well. All of this information will be available on the day of the event. So if you're if you know once you've registered, you would have received an email and you'll get a WhatsApp message as well about a registration start time. Please make sure you're there at the start time, and you'll be able to attend several expert sessions on the day as well. Each of the schools will present briefly as well. We've given the schools a very interesting task. We've told them in 4 minutes they need to tell you why you should consider studying at their school. So this is also a great opportunity for you to understand broadly which school might be the right fit for you. There are going to be presentations running in 2 different rooms at the same time. So looking at the agenda, you'll be able to pick which schools align more with your aspirations and choose a room that's most suited for you. There's also going to be separate panel discussions happening. We're going to talk about how do you set yourself apart as an applicant to top B schools, and also talk about how do you build from classroom to careers. How do you build that successful career after a master's or an MBA program? So all of this and more to look out for at the event. There's also going to be experts talking about the GMAT or the GRE test and how can you prepare to ace that exam, as well as funding and scholarships of how you can plan that better as well. Now, at the event, you will have a chance to meet all the schools that are joining us today, all the schools that will join us on the day of the event. So please feel free to ask any question that you may have. Remember, they're here to help you. So no question will be a bad question. It's mainly down to understanding what is the right fit for you and how can you make sure that you get questions answered that you cannot find on the website or any other location online as well. Now, in terms of preparing for the event, make sure you arrive in time. Make sure you're researching about the schools. It always helps to make a good first impression if you know a little bit about which program or what appeals to you from the school in particular as well. And lastly, make sure you're dressing to impress. A formal attire in whatever form is something that schools prefer as well. So if you'd like to be semi-formally dressed at least, that would help. Think about networking strategically. There's the schools, but also other peer candidates that are also applying to schools as well. This is a great time for you to get to meet some of them. Prepare an interesting elevator pitch for yourself. Now, that's one tip I give very often to candidates. You're going to be amongst several candidates that are all trying to get attention from the school. Think of it of how can you talk about your story in about 30 seconds to a minute quickly. And make sure you have some questions ready. Participate in different interactions. Throughout the event, there are different stages or different opportunities for you to interact with schools or other exhibitors as well. Make sure you're making the most of this. It is important to participate in panels and ask questions as well, just so that you can learn most from this event as well. Now, some of you may have a golden ticket, and if you haven't got one, there's another email that goes out tomorrow. So depending on what stage of that application journey you're at, you would have received a golden ticket. The idea of the golden ticket is that you get some exclusive additional time with the schools to ask your questions in a more intimate setting. You also get opportunity to apply to exclusive scholarships for golden ticket holders. So both of these are extremely valuable. Make sure that if you have a golden ticket, you're coming on the day of the event and maximizing your opportunities as well. For all of you that are attending today and that join us to the event, you will all have access to $6 million of scholarships. Now, I know funding is a major question when you're thinking about business school. Planning that range of opportunities around funding, be it scholarships, loans, or personal funding, sometimes is a major challenge. So this is a great opportunity to access more funds and also learn about what loan opportunities you may have available as well. Now, with that, I hope this gives you a good idea of what it may be like to consider attending a business school festival in your city. We're thrilled to see you all in the coming days. And if you have questions around the events, please feel free to post them a little bit about in the Q&A section. There's a question about scholarships that's come up already as well, and we'll talk about that when we come to the Q&A. So please feel free to keep your questions in the Q&A section, and we'll come to that shortly as well. Now, without further ado, I want to move to the next section of today's event. I want to invite Amy Duckworth, who's a leading admissions consultant who's been on the admissions side for over a decade. She'll share tips around how do you choose and apply to the right school? How do you leave good first impressions? Amy, we're thrilled to have you here. I'll pass over to you to start the presentation.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining. I know it's a little late for some of you, so do appreciate you taking the time to join the session this evening. I'm going to share my screen as I do have some slides. So if you just bear with me one moment. Can you see my screen? Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so as Paris said, my name is Amy Duckworth, and I'm a former director of admissions. I was director of admissions at Imperial College Business School, and before that, I was head of recruitment and admissions at Cambridge Judge Business School. I've got around 10 years of experience in higher education, and last year I established my admissions consulting firm, Empower Admissions Consulting. And essentially, I work with business school applicants to help them clarify their goals and craft a compelling application strategy, helping them to highlight strengths and address potential weaknesses with confidence, so anything that they're a bit concerned about in their profile, and navigating school selection, essays, interviews, and anything else associated with applying to business school, really, with clear guidance. So it's essentially like a coaching type role. So in today's session, we are going to talk about the most important factors to consider when deciding where to apply. So that would include things like career goals, cultural fit, rankings, and also scholarships. We're also going to cover how to build genuine connections and engage with your target schools before applying, both online and in person. And so an example coming up that you have the Seed Festival is obviously an opportunity to engage with schools in person. And we're also going to talk about how to structure your CV for business school applications in a way that highlights your achievements, leadership potential, and impact. Oh, sorry. Okay, so those are the three things that we're really going to cover today, and then we will have time for questions as well. So in terms of a starting point for shortlisting schools, so there are a lot of different business schools out there, and I know that can feel a bit overwhelming because there's almost too much choice. These are a few factors that you might want to consider when oh gosh, sorry. These are a few factors that you might want to consider when thinking about which school is right for you. So you've got practical considerations, things like the length of the program, 1 or 2 years, online or in person. You've got rankings. You've got the career outcomes. So what does the employment report data look like? You've got the curriculum. So what's actually going to be taught? What kind of projects are there? And then you've got fit. Is it a good fit for you, and is that school a place where you're going to be happy and where you're going to thrive? So we'll start with rankings. As I'm sure some of you are already aware, there are many different rankings. So, for example, there is the Financial Times ranking, the QS ranking, the Bloomberg ranking. There are a lot of rankings, and each of them is different. And the schools, and they will each have the schools in different positions, because they have different methodology and they're looking at different factors and weighting the different factors differently. So that's why they get different outcomes. So that's why you might see a school ranked in a particular position in one ranking and in a different position in another. And that could be at a school level or at a program level. The other thing to bear in mind is that rankings can fluctuate. So year on year, just because a school is ranked in a particular position one year doesn't mean it's going to stay there. And that might not be because the school is doing anything different. That could just be because there have been, it could be obviously changes in the adjacent schools in that ranking, or the methodology could have changed, and they could be weighting different factors in a different way. So that's something to bear in mind. So my advice on rankings is that they are a useful starting point, but I would not advise that you make a decision on which business schools to apply to based solely on the rankings. They really just tell part of the story, and at the end of the day, that's someone else's opinion on the school and where it sits. So it's a good starting point, but it's definitely not the most important factor. Then you have to think about practical considerations. So, for example, the format. Do you want to leave your job and do a full-time program, or do you want to work alongside your studies? Financially speaking, what's feasible for you? Do you want to do online or in person? Do you want to do 1 year or 2 year? Obviously, with a 1 year program, it's going to be more intense, but you only have 1 year out of the workplace. The 2 year program gives you more time, typically internship opportunities, but it's a longer time out of the workplace and 2 years without salary, of course. So these are all very practical considerations that you need to bear in mind when you are thinking about which school and which program is right for you. Then you have the location. So are you planning to relocate for the program? Where do you want to be based? How does that fit with your target post MBA location? So are you planning to study in a country where you then want to stay and work afterwards? If you're planning to study one place and then work somewhere different, how does that how does that kind of how do you frame that narrative when you're thinking about your articulating your career goals? And then you've got visa considerations, depending on where you want to study. If you want to remain in that country and work after doing your MBA, will you need a visa? What are the post-study work visa options? How realistic is that? So those are all things to think about when you are looking at the location of a school. And this is particularly important if it's a full-time program. Obviously, if it's an online program, it doesn't matter. And if it's a part-time program, you'll be going in and out. But particularly location is important for full-time programs. And then you have the cost. So you've got the price of the program itself, what scholarships are available, what other funding options are there. If it's 1 year or 2 year, thinking about the living expenses and the lack of salary for that time. So those are all things you need to bear in mind as well. And then thinking about the curriculum. So when you look at things, for example, an MBA program is a general management program. So if you look at the curriculum across multiple business schools, there will be similarities, especially when it comes to business fundamentals like corporate finance, strategy, marketing. But there will be differences as well. And it's important that you understand what those are and how they fit with your particular areas of interest and with your career goals. So you should also think about the teaching methods. So do they use primarily lectures, case studies? What experiential learning, like projects, hands-on learning? What does that look like? And think about your own learning style and what you think would suit you best. So looking at the range of electives, as I said, there will be, particularly in the core modules, there will definitely be similarities across different programs. But when you think about the electives or specialisms, and particularly if you have interests that are maybe more niche, making sure that those are covered in the program, in the curriculum. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So looking at the range of electives and specialisms and concentrations, because most programs will offer you the opportunity to tailor the program to suit your interests and your post-MBA career goals. So just making sure that they have things on offer that fit with what you want to focus on. And then internship opportunities. So typically 2-year programs have internship opportunities, but 1-year programs may also offer work placements or projects with real live clients. So that's definitely something to look into as well. You might also want to consider what international opportunities they have. So do they have global experience weeks? Do they have international projects? So think about where you'll be able to increase your international exposure, if that's something that's important to you. And projects, I think we've already covered. and yes, of course, international experiences. Sorry, I've jumped ahead there. And then finally, think about the assessment methods. So is it exam-based? Is it project-based? Is it based on classroom participation? So those are they're obviously different. There may well be a combination of assessment methods, but that's something to consider when you're working out which program might be the best fit for you from an academic perspective. And then, of course, career outcomes. So typically, when you're attending business school, career outcomes are really top of mind for you. Most people go to business school with particular motivations around their career outcomes. So I would recommend that for the programs that you're interested in, have a look at their employment reports. So those are usually made available on the school's website 3 months after graduation, and they report on the employment outcomes of the most recent cohort. So that's a good place to start. It will tell you things like their average salary. It will tell you things like the industries that their graduates went on to work in, also the post-study work locations. So that's a great starting point. It will also tell you the percentage of the cohort who received job offers within 3 months. As I said, locations. It will also tell you about the career switch, the career switch information. So often people go to business school with the idea of making some kind of change in their career, whether that's the country, the function, or industry. And normally the employment report will highlight the percentage of the cohort that have made those kind of switches. So this is particularly relevant if you are targeting a career switch yourself. And obviously average salary, as we've already said. So the next thing to think about is the fit, and this is a little bit harder to assess because it's more of a feeling. Is the school a good fit for you? It's quite subjective, but here are some ways to tell if a school might be a good fit for you. So look at the class profile, see what kind of work experience range is in the cohort. And what kind of industry and what kind of industry backgrounds people are coming from. Try to speak to current students and alumni. So some schools will have ambassadors on their website that you can connect with, but if not, then LinkedIn is the best way to do this. So I definitely recommend updating your LinkedIn profile before you start reaching out to people, but try to look for people maybe from a similar background to you, or who are working in a company or role that interests you for your post-MBA or post-business school career goal. And try to reach out to them on LinkedIn and find out a bit more about their experiences with the school and the program. Visit the school or attend online events. So that may, depending on where the school is located and whether you're able to travel, that may not be possible to go in person, but schools typically offer a range of online events as well. So it could be virtual open days, it could be admissions, Q&A sessions, it could be alumni panels. So have a look on the school's events page and see what's coming up, either in your region or online. And then, of course, attending fairs like the Seed Festival that you have the opportunity to attend in the coming days. And these are three key questions to ask yourself when you're working out whether a school might be a good fit for you. Could I see myself at this school? Do I feel like I would thrive in this environment? And do I feel excited about this school and this program? So when you're attending these events, when you're speaking to representatives from the school, when you're chatting with current students or alumni, do you feel excited about the prospect of attending that school and doing that program? Because if so, that's a really good sign that the school might be a good fit for you. So we're now going to talk about engaging with your target schools. So when, how, and why to do that, purposeful engagement, and some do's and don'ts. So in terms of when, So the ideal time to start engaging with a school that you're considering applying to is within 18 months of when you want to start a program. It's absolutely fine to start to attend events earlier than that, but it could be difficult at that point for them to give feedback on your profile, or to kind of have more practical discussions, because if you're looking at applying in, say, 5 years, it's just a little bit more difficult to have those in-depth conversations. You can absolutely start doing some research and thinking about it, but ideally the time to start engaging with the school is within 18 months of when you want to start the program. And how to do this. So MBA fairs, for example, the seed events that you have coming up, school events, online and in person, reaching out directly. So if they offer profile reviews via their website with their admissions team, and speaking with alumni and current students. And why is it important to engage with schools before you actually apply? So really, this is an important part of your research when you're determining whether the program and the school is a good fit for you, and it's a way for you to get answers to any questions that you have, and it allows you to establish a relationship and make a good impression. Schools are really looking for candidates who are motivated, proactive. So actually doing this research and engaging with the school in a very intentional way gives a good impression, and it will strengthen your application, because it will be clear in your application and in your interview, if you're invited for interview, that you've really kind of put in this work, and your answers will absolutely be stronger for having done that. What I mean by purposeful engagement is that this is not just a tick box exercise. It's not just like, okay, well, I've attended a webinar, so great, tick that box that I've engaged with the school. It's really each engagement that you have with the school should have a reason. Like, what is the purpose of this? What am I getting from this? What impression am I giving to the school? Is it answering questions? Is it, what's each engagement should have a reason. So just try to think about that, and don't see it as a tick box exercise. And some do's and don'ts for engaging with the schools before applying. So do some research before engaging with the school. So ahead of the upcoming events, if you know that there's certain schools there that you want to chat with, do have a look at their websites in advance and find out some basic information about the school and the program you're interested in. Do ask for feedback. So you can share your profile, your CV, and ask for feedback. And do follow up on LinkedIn or via email. So if you meet with a contact from a school and you have a great conversation with them, do take the time to send them a thank you note and reiterate your interest and your motivation for applying there. That obviously just reinforces that. It reinforces that your interest and your commitment to applying to that school. So some don'ts. Don't ask very basic questions that are answered on the website. Things like, where is your school located? How long is the program? These are very simple questions that you can easily find on the website. So it's not a good use of the opportunity to meet with your opportunity meeting with the representative from that school. This isn't a good way to use it. Don't ask things that are very obvious on the website. Don't ask them to compare their schools to others. I think that in general they won't do that. They'll only really talk about their own school and what they offer. They won't kind of compare that against what other schools offer. And don't contact too often. So you certainly don't want to be, repeatedly contacting. So this is, like I said, it's the purposeful engagement. So each contact that you make, each engagement that you make should be, should have a reason. So there's no reason to be contacting every week, for example. That isn't going to make a good impression. And if you're unsure what to ask schools at an MBA or master's fair, here is some potential inspiration for you. So you can ask about the program and the curriculum. So here's an example of how you might do that. I'm interested in your, and then global immersion, exchange, or partnership program, whatever's applicable. Can you tell me more about that and how students typically leverage that in their job search? You could ask about culture and student experience. So, for example, what opportunities are there to network with students from other programs or other campuses, if the school has other campuses? Career support and outcomes. I'm interested in exploring entrepreneurship as a longer term career route. How could I do this while studying at your school? And alumni engagement. How do alumni typically stay connected and engage with the school and with each other? And you can also ask them about next steps. So an example of that would be, how would you recommend I continue my research about this school or program? Do you have any relevant upcoming events that I should register for, I should be aware of? So these are just some example questions, gives you some, maybe gives you some inspiration as to the type of things that you could ask. I'll now touch on scholarships briefly. So if securing scholarship funding is important for you, then I would definitely recommend applying earlier in the cycle if possible. If you apply at the very end of the admissions cycle, the final rounds, often there can be very limited scholarship funding left. Typically, there'll be more scholarship funding available in the earlier rounds. How to apply, that really depends on the school and the program. They'll each have different scholarships on offer and different processes for applying. Sometimes you actually don't need to do anything additional at all. You'll just be assessed for a scholarship on the basis of your application that you submit and potentially interview performance. But in some cases, you may be required to do an extra essay or a video assessment. So make sure you have a look at the school's website and see what is required for any scholarships that you want to apply for. Some schools also offer needs-based awards, so that would involve you demonstrating financial need. And other types of awards are merit-based, so that could be based on your GPA, GMAT or GRE, or the overall strength of your profile, and as I said, potentially interview performance as well. So those are a range of factors. As schools may also have scholarships targeting particular people from particular industries or particular demographics. There may be scholarships for people from particular backgrounds. So do have a look at what's on offer and what you might be eligible for. And we're now going to talk about how to put together your CV for a business school application, because it's a little bit different from a CV that you would use for a job application. We'll cover the purpose of a CV in a business school application, the format, what to include, and really what schools are looking for. So the purpose of a CV in a business school application, it's one of the tools that you have at your disposal to convey your fit for the program. And it's really a snapshot of you and what you've achieved so far. It shows the impact that you've had in your professional life so far, and by extension, where you aim to go and what your potential for future achievement might be. It demonstrates key career-defining accomplishments, growth, professional growth, personal growth, leadership, and potential. And it's a way to showcase that you'll be an asset to the class and the school, both now and in your future career. It's important that your CV is also aligned with your essays and references. So everything in your application should fit together. It should all be part of a bigger narrative. So the experiences that you've had, if you're going to then reference, if you're going to use examples from those particular roles in your essays, it should all kind of, you need to make sure it all links together and that you're demonstrating that variety across the application as well. So if you've covered, depending on what you've covered in the CV, you'll then want to make sure that the rest of your application matches with that, and also thinking about the career goals as well and how your past experience links with what you want to achieve in the future. So Nothing in the application is a standalone document or standalone piece of writing. Everything should fit together and tells a story. The format is ideally one page and definitely no more than two. Some schools say they will only accept a one page. So one page is definitely the preference. I have seen examples where two has been, there's been a reason for two, but generally I would say one if possible. If the school has a CV template that they have, if the school has a CV template that they have provided, then I would definitely recommend using that. It just shows the school that you've put in that effort to use their template rather than just submitting the same thing everywhere. And it makes it easier for whoever is reviewing your application, because all of the information is in the exact place that they expect it to be and how they're used to seeing it. So I would recommend doing that. I would advise against using color and images. So it's not the place to get creative. Generally, the business school CV templates are just boring black and white. So yeah, I wouldn't, don't try to stray from that and do something very creative. I don't think it's the place for it. Okay, so that's in general the format. Now what to include. So you need to include your academics. So this is important, your previous academic performance. So the subject that you studied, the institution, and also the grade. You can also include any exchanges, study exchanges, study abroad that you did as well, if you have. Any professional qualifications, for example, if you've done CFA or something like that, you'll also want to include that on the CV. And then your work experience. So for each role that you've held, the title that you had at that company, the company name, the location, and the dates. And if you had different roles at one company, for example, say you were promoted, make sure you include each role that you had at the company and the dates, because this shows career progression, which is one of the things that schools are looking for. Any relevant technical skills, so for example, any languages you speak, or it could be any programming capabilities you have, any technical skills should also be included in the CV. And then any key achievements, any awards or recognitions, and those could be professional or academic, or as part of your extracurricular activities, perhaps. And when it comes to your interests or extracurriculars, I would definitely recommend including these. It's another way to show your personality and for your profile to be different. So if you have any interesting extracurricular activities, then do include those, and try to give a bit of context. For example, if you like running and you've run like 3 marathons, don't just put running, put that you've run these marathons, or if you have been part of a national team for something, don't just put or cycling, make sure you actually put as part of this team, or make sure you give that context, because otherwise it could just be say for example you put football, it could just be that you play a bit in the park at the weekend, but actually you've been coaching a team, for example. So make sure that you give the context, so that what you put about your interests and your extracurriculars is really meaningful and impactful. And what schools are looking for. So academics, they are looking for strong academics. Previous academic performance is an important indicator of future academic performance, and schools want to make sure that you will be able to handle the academic rigor of their program. Career progression, so that was the point I was making about highlighting different roles that you've held within the same company. So they're looking for clear career progression. If it hasn't been in the form of actual promotions, depending on the company you work for and their structure, it may not be that you've had formal promotions, but it could be that you've grown in the role, taken on more responsibilities. So try to make sure that that comes across in the CV and in your application. International exposure, if you've had it. That doesn't just mean living or studying in a different country. It could also mean managing a diverse portfolio of clients, or it could mean working in an international, diverse international team. So don't think of it as just, oh, well, I haven't lived or studied in a different, I haven't lived or worked, studied in a different country. There's lots of different ways that you can show international exposure and that kind of global perspective. And then for each of the roles that you've held, you should focus the bullet points on impact and achievement. So this is not just a job description. This is actually what have you achieved in each role that you've held. And if you can quantify that in any way, if you can put numbers against what you've achieved, then that's great. No problem if not, because it's not always possible given, depending on what your role was and the company. But if you can quantify your achievements, then that's always a good thing to do. And finally, written with clarity, impact, and relevance. If you want one page, you really need to think about being concise, and everything on that CV needs to have a reason for being there. Oh, that wasn't last, sorry. And thinking about transferable skills. So maybe you've got some experiences that you think are not directly relevant for business school, but actually they could have helped you develop transferable skills that are going to be super important for business school. So don't try and second guess that that something is irrelevant for business school, because it could well be relevant. Think more about the transferable skills. Apologies, there's another bullet point. And clear personal impact. So people who are reviewing these applications review an awful lot of CVs and an awful lot of applications, so make sure it's interesting, make sure it's authentic, make sure it shows your personality and shows who you are. So in terms of next steps, after the upcoming Seed festivals, we have a post-event bootcamp where we're going to focus on building a strong business school application. So that will be kind of next steps after you've met with the schools, what to do, how to kind of take it forward from there. And that will be on Sunday, the 9th of November. You've also got my LinkedIn, email, website there. And if you are interested in working together on your business school applications, then you can scan the QR code and book an introductory call with me and see if it might be a good fit to work together. I think that's everything from my side, Paris, if I hand back to you for questions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amy. And I learned so much even after doing this for so long, of things that we need to keep in mind as we meet business schools or start that application process as well. So thank you for that. We have some time now for questions. So folks that are in the audience, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, if you want to put that in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, we'll try and answer some of those. And don't worry if you've not thought through the entire question as well. The idea here is to help you prepare better. So no question's a bad question again. So please feel free to ask anything that comes to your mind. Amy, there's a question that's come up around scholarships. So we can maybe we can talk a little bit about that. You've obviously spoken about that in your presentation as well.
Yeah.
What makes a candidate stand out when they're applying to scholarships?
I mean, it really depends on what type of scholarship it is. So, I mean, I think if we kind of forget needs-based scholarships, because that's obviously about demonstrating financial need, but if we're thinking about what makes you stand out, then I'm assuming we're talking about merit-based scholarships. So generally, if it's a scholarship where you don't need to do anything additional in order to be considered, then typically they would be looking at previous academic performance and overall, it's the overall strength of your application. So just making sure that in terms of your work experience, your profile, the essays, that everything is kind of as strong as it possibly can be. Ultimately, the academics are very important when it comes to merit-based scholarships, but that's not to say that the rest of the application doesn't play a role as well. If it's a scholarship, for example, sometimes there are awards for potential, for example, there are a number of different female scholarships. because a lot of business schools want to attract more female applicants and try and get closer to that 50-50 gender split in the cohort, because often women are slightly underrepresented in business school programs. So typically schools will have female scholarships as well as scholarships for people from other groups. But when it comes to scholarships like that, if they want you to do it, it could be a video assessment or an essay. It might be about how you've kind of made an impact in this area previously. So they'll be looking for concrete examples of, how you've, initiatives that you've taken. So, for example, say it's a female scholarship. What have you done, in your workplace to kind of champion diversity and equality. So thinking about, depending on what the award is, anything relevant that you've done to show that you would be a good person to to kind of take forward that initiative at the school, both as a current student and as an alum. So if you've been in part of any kind of mentoring program, something like that, those are all kind of great things to mention. Make it as specific and detailed as possible, not just, I like supporting other women. Like, how have you actually done that? What actions have you taken? What was the result?
Yeah, some really good points. And I think, as you, from my side, as you think about standing out in that application process, I always say to people, be very authentic. Sometimes there are things that you feel that are probably not as critical or not as groundbreaking. Talk to somebody else to understand if they felt that was quite an achievement as well. So give yourself credit, but obviously don't boast about yourself. There's a thin line between the two things. And at the end of the day, for most schools that don't have a separate application, make sure that if there is an optional essay, you're using that effectively as well. So look at every facet of the application for the program as an idea of that if that's the same documentation or information that's being used for scholarships as well. And the last tip I would give is, if you are looking at funding, please take the GMAT or GRE exam. Having a standardized test score further enhances your academic capability or showcases that, as Amy was talking about that earlier as well.
And particularly if you maybe have, this is something else that people often ask about, if you are concerned that perhaps your undergraduate GPA is a bit lower, or you feel it doesn't represent your true academic capability or potential, and perhaps it's from several years ago, then having a good GMAT or GRE score can really help to compensate for that and strengthen your application.
That's a really good point as well. Lovely. There's a couple of other questions that's coming in, and we'll try and answer them as well. So please keep your questions coming. We'll try and take as many as we can. There's a question from Zain who's asking, should I make a portfolio besides a CV? Now, I'll give the first thought, and then Amy, I'll pass over to you. I think it depends, Zain, on what is the background you're bringing. Now, if you come from a business fraternity, or if you're currently in a job in an area which is not dominated by, let's say, an arts faculty or something on that front, or unless you're doing real estate, there's very little from a portfolio perspective. What you want to do is articulate things well on your CV, and maybe bring examples or showcase examples of your leadership potential through that process. So I think there's not much value of having a portfolio unless you're applying for a program that is looking at information like that. If you're looking at an MBA or a business master's, more often than not, a portfolio is less critical. Amy, any thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And sometimes people try to add a lot more information on their LinkedIn as well, because they think that that can kind of complement the CV and give a lot more information. I mean, definitely make sure your LinkedIn is up to date, and make sure that it matches the CV in terms of the roles that you've held and the companies and the timelines. But you can't rely on the fact that somebody from the admissions office will review that, because it's not one of the required elements of the application. So really, you need to focus on the CV and making sure that the key points and the most impactful elements are included in the CV.
Thank you, Amy. There's a question from Avram, which is, should I have a hard copy of my CV at the event? Avram, it's never a disadvantage. Have something if you'd like, but more often than not, I think my suggestion would be after you've met the school, make sure that you can email and start a conversation more particularly. I think it's useful to have it handy, but not something that every school will want from you. So keep it just as a reference point if you want to talk through it. But I would say email it after and continue the dialogue with the school following that. Amy, any other tips on that? Carrying a CV to the event?
I mean, it definitely doesn't hurt to have it with you. And if you do have the opportunity with with one of the school representatives who you're speaking with one to one, then it could be worth showing them the CV. But if you're meeting, if it's a group meeting, then it isn't really the best place to kind of talk through your CV if there's obviously other candidates there as well, because generally the school will want to be giving information and having conversations that can include everyone there. So it's probably not going to be very focused on your CV, but absolutely doesn't hurt to have it with you. And as Paris said, and as I said in the slides as well, following up afterwards with a representative from the school that you've met is a great thing to do too.
Wonderful. Let's take the next question. There's a question that asks, since universities participating are all top universities, what are the chances of acceptance of a not very high GPA? Let's say 3.5. But want to start over and do my best. Definitely will try as much as I can, but want to know about my competitiveness as a part of the pool. Amy, what are your thoughts first?
So I would say that a lower GPA definitely doesn't, definitely doesn't mean that you don't have a chance of admission, because typically, for post experience programs, people have done their undergraduate degree, could be, many years ago in some cases. And often people don't feel that it's a real reflection of their abilities, or their current abilities as well, if it was to something from 7 or 8 years ago. So what I would say is the rest of your application needs to be very strong to kind of compensate. You don't, if your undergraduate GPA is a potential, like a bit, maybe a red flag, you don't want anything else in your application to be that. You want the rest, you want everything else to be very strong to compensate for any potential, any potential concern around the undergraduate GPA. And the GMAT or GRE is a great way to offset a lower undergraduate GPA. Because that will be a more up-to-date reflection of your academic ability, and should reassure the school as well. If your GPA isn't the best, it should reassure the school that you'll be able to cope with the program from an academic perspective.
Wonderful. Yeah, and to add on, I would just say that this process from the school's end is a holistic process. So don't worry if one aspect of your application is slightly weaker. Use the other aspects or opportunities to make sure that you can stand out as well. So be it extracurricular, be it some community work that you've done, be it your work experience, or even leadership during the time of your course. If you're if you've recently graduated, if you were a part of a club or a society on campus, some of those aspects might be good to highlight as well. And as Amy mentioned, taking the GMAT or GRE strengthens your academic ability to showcase to schools as well. Now, talking about the GMAT or GRE, there's another question that I want to take at this point. Amy, there is Basil who says, I have no idea about the GMAT or other similar requirements. Is it possible to find an MBA, with just a bachelor's and a few years of work experience?
There are some programs that don't require the GMAT or GRE. Some schools offer their own test instead. As an alternative, they'll most likely accept the GMAT or GRE as well, but they'll offer their own test as an alternative. But generally speaking, there's some kind of test that whether it's GMAT, GRE, or the school's own test, particularly for full-time programs. And really, this is one of the reasons that this is useful for the schools, is because they have so many applicants from all over the world with different kind of educational backgrounds, different professional backgrounds. And this is one kind of way that they can actually compare people in this, you know, in with a standardized test that everyone has taken, because, you know, most of the time people have taken completely different programs from completely different universities in different countries, so you can't really compare them. So this is just one way that actually allows you to kind of, you know, benchmark the candidates against each other despite the diversity of the backgrounds.
Yeah, you know, really good points. And you know, just to sort of close up on this, I would just add, if you don't have like today, there are several schools that offer waivers, but the waivers are basis of your profile or what they feel you can contribute to the classroom or society after. So make sure you're able to showcase your potential. Don't shy away from a GMAT or GRE exam, honestly, because if you feel academically you're slightly weaker, this gives you time to prepare for some of those quant heavy skills that will be required as you go into the program and work through different modules as well. So,
and if you aren't sure which one to take out of the GMAT and GRE, you can do, there are free practice tests, free mocks for both of them online. So you could do a practice of each and see which one feels like a better fit for you. Most people kind of find that they have one that they have a natural preference for. So you can do the mocks. There's also a lot of free resources online to help you prepare, both through GRE and through GMAT. So you can have a look at that. And then if you want further support, then there are online, there are courses, there are tutors, if you feel that's something that you need.
wonderful. There's some questions about what to expect from this event, or rather around other types of programs as well. So I'll quickly clarify. The event is specifically for candidates looking for a business master's or an MBA program. If you're looking for engineering style of programs, we will hold a separate event in the future that you can attend. Or if you're looking at a bachelor's program or a PhD program, there are going to be separate events for that in the future. These series of events are focused specifically for business masters and MBA programs as such. There's another question around, there was mention about it's better to research about the schools that are attending. How can we find the list of schools as well? I will post the link to the page from our website where you can pick which event you're looking at, which city you're at, and basis of that, be able to look at the schools that are attending in your city as well. So the link is now in the chat. If you're looking at which schools are attending in your city, you can very well go through each of the cities and see which schools are there as well. I'll go back to the questions. Now, Amy, there's one question that's come up is, if I don't have an undergraduate degree, are there schools that would accept a candidate from that profile? Maybe they have several years of work experience. Does that compensate in any way?
So without an undergraduate degree, that would depend. Some schools do allow, some schools do accept applicants who don't have an undergraduate degree. It would definitely be important to have a very strong GMAT or GRE score, and for the rest of your application to be, very good quality, and including your work experience. It's best to check with the school before doing this, because you don't want to put in all of that, effort if it turns out actually they aren't able to consider applicants without an undergraduate degree. And in some cases, schools who will allow applicants without a degree, they will have some kind of other test, or some kind of academic assessment that they will set for you themselves. So it's worth just checking that with the school. As you know, in most cases, they will say that an undergraduate degree is required, but they may say in exceptional circumstances, we may consider candidates without an undergraduate degree. So I would say it's the exception, not the rule, but it's definitely something to ask individual schools about what their policy is and what their requirements are and what other steps you would need to take if you wanted to apply there.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think it's going to be a school specific question, but I would always encourage that you have to be academically ready for a program as well. So if you don't have an undergraduate degree, maybe if you've done or you're thinking about doing certifications first, that can help. So sometimes if you're coming from a accounting or a certain professional chartered exam that you've taken, that can add to your profile if you didn't complete your
Yeah,
undergraduate degree.
definitely.
Um, there are a couple of people raising hands. I would request you to please put your questions in the chat box or in the Q&A section. Um, we'll try and take that as much as we can. We've got a couple of more last minutes before we close for today. There's a question around there's Abdul Rahman who wants to know, does this program contain something relating to software testing or information technology? Abdul Rahman, my advice on that would be the schools that are coming are business schools in particular, but several of them will have programs for people with backgrounds in technical fields. So, for example, today with the boom of AI, there are several schools that offer a master's in AI or similar domains. There's also schools that offer a master's in information technology alongside business innovation. So there might be certain schools that offer you that. But if you're looking at a hardcore technical program, again, this event may not offer you exactly that. This is probably a good event for someone who's transitioning into business or wants to go into management as a career in particular. If there are any other questions from the audience, please feel free to post that. But while we do that, Amy, one question from me to you. As folks decide how to pick that program or pick that right school, what is that one tip that you want them to keep in mind? Um, you know, Something that will influence their decision. What is that one thing that you tell them to think about?
Well, it's difficult because there's quite a lot of different there's quite a lot of things to consider. I think one of my tips would be to really kind of start early doing this research and put in the time because it takes a lot longer than you think. And it's not a decision to rush. I think that one of the best things that you can do is speak with current students and alumni of a program, because they've done it, they've lived it, they've kind of they've been in the position that you're in now, and they've come out the other side of that, and they're either doing the program or they've completed it now. So I think that's really invaluable to get their perspectives. So LinkedIn is your best friend in terms of how to research how to get that perspective when you're deciding on a school. And I will share, you will get an email from me afterwards, and I will share, I've got a couple of blog posts on how to choose a program that have some useful tips as well. So I will share those afterwards.
Wonderful. There's a question from Zainab around if I come from a non-business background, so she's got a bachelor in health, and I want to study in business or management. Is that a disadvantage? Is that possible? Amy, do you want to give any thoughts first?
Yes, absolutely not a disadvantage to come from a non-traditional, non-typical business or MBA background. The schools actually want candidates from all sorts of different backgrounds, because what they value is that diversity, and it's not, it's diversity in terms of thought, diversity in terms of experience, and diversity in terms of perspectives. The whole point of doing a business program is that you learn from the other people, the peer-to-peer learning, and you can't really do that if everyone has the same kind of experiences. So the schools really want that. They want that diversity, and don't be don't be tempted to, write in your application what you think the schools want to hear. Be authentic, be yourself, and everyone is bringing something different. And the schools want that. They don't want a cohort full of people who, are exactly the same.
That's really well put. And I always say, if you're bringing a different background, you're bringing a different perspective to class. So that's what schools value, and they want to bring more of those innovators together. Many a times you'll see that, if, for example, folks have started a entrepreneurship venture from a school, not all of them are coming from the exact same background, and that's the beauty of a diverse background that you bring into a classroom as well. The last question, and I know there are a few more coming in at the moment. I'll take the last question here, Amy. Thank you for being here with us through the session as well. This comes from Yusra. I hope that I pronounced that name correctly, Yusra. Is there a deadline to keep in mind if you're applying for the 2026 intake, or what's the best time as such to apply?
So if you're applying for the September 2026 intake, some schools, so a lot of schools, so generally speaking, applications open 1 year or so roughly before the start of the program. So round one would have been, kind of September time. A lot of schools have January deadlines, and typically that's quite a big admissions round. A lot of people apply for January. And then there'll be spring deadlines as well, and that looks a bit different depending on the schools. Some schools have their final deadline around March, some have them as late as May. So it really depends on the school. But I would say if you want to start a program in September 2026, then it's worth putting in quite a bit of time now, because it sounds like quite a long time away, but it's really not. If you've already got a GMAT or GRE score, you might be able to apply in January, which is great. Or if you're about to take the test, potentially. If you are sort of still at this discovery stage, then January is probably going to be a bit of a stretch. So you'd be looking at kind of spring deadlines. But still it would be important to kind of start moving with things now, really. And generally, for my clients that are going to work with me on their applications, I advise them to start working with me 3 to 6 months before the deadline that they're targeting. Obviously it is possible in a shorter amount of time. It just means that it's going to be a bit more intense, and obviously people are balancing jobs as well, so it's going to be a bit more stressful perhaps. So yeah, try and give yourself as long as possible would be my advice.
No, absolutely. And if you're applying for 2026, now is probably the best time to get started. There are several candidates that are going to go through this process at the same time. So learn from each other. Amy is available. Her email address is on the chat function already as well. And Amy, if you want to just put that one more time, your email address.
I'll just share the slide that's got so that's got my LinkedIn, email address, my website, and then the QR code if you want to book an introductory call.
Yeah, so if people want to take a quick picture of this before we close off for today, I hope today's session has been useful. We look forward to seeing many of you at the events in the coming week. Amy, thank you so much again for being with us today. And for all the students that are attending, please feel free to reach out to Amy following today's session if you'd like to work with her on your business school application as well. For tonight from us, thank you very much and have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the upcoming events.